Hi and welcome to Elvenhome and to this episode which charts the development of the area outside the church up to Greyhaven Station as I start to work my way through thinking how I'm going to lay that out. It was recorded over the space of a couple of weeks, partly because I had to order some things and partly I had to get my head in order as to how I wanted things to be done. And what I've done to break that up a bit so you don't just get lots of talking is that in between each of the recorded sections, as I started thinking about how I was going to lay things out, there are trains running, so you don't have to go more, I think, than about 5 or 6 minutes before you see some trains for a while, and that includes some shots from the train cam, which, if you've seen the last episode, is getting used more and more. So I hope you enjoy the video. At the end of the video, I talk about the regularity with which I'm going to start producing these videos, so that you can have a date for your diary. But enjoy the video, and I'll speak to you again in just a moment. Well, let me take you through what's in my mind at the moment. That's a scary prospect, as to how I'm going to lay out the remainder of the upper level. What I've got so far, as you will have seen, is that I've using the scale model scenery station fencing, which I've used already on the platforms. It actually makes an excellent boundary fence, which is, if I come in a bit closer, I've stuck it to a piece of strip styrene which is painted green, and it now forms the boundary fence from the end of the station all the way along round the dip to a point just behind this tree, excuse me, to a point here, and that's down there is one of the gates from the kit as well. The paving stones, I don't know if they're coming out, they may or may not. Let's go back here. I always say don't throw anything away from Metcalfe kits. That is the thick grey board that is used as the strengthening boards in all sorts of kits. I inscribed into it the relevant size paving slabs, 3 foot by 2 foot scale size. Then I painted it a light grey, went over the scribes again to make sure the paving slabs sort of stand out, and then I've gone over it with a dark earth, I think, weathering powders. Perhaps a bit heavy-handed in some places, but I'm quite happy with that. And that just gives me a paved area all the way from the station to the church. You'll see also some strip styrene that's just had some grey primer put on it. That's going to be the curbstones. And what I want to do now, and this is where I'm sort of trying to work it out in my head, the curbstones won't be tight up against the paving because I want to have a grassed border edging the paving, so there is something as a barrier between the edge of the paving and the road. The area here with the big X, which is a bit ominous really, considering that, as I understand it, is the turning circle for a hearse. And the idea is that I was originally, as you may recall, going to have in the far corner here, try not to make you feel too ill as I move you around, trees to hide the road, but it occurred to me that the board, when it comes off, that end up there is going to be completely unprotected. So having anything too delicate in that corner doesn't make sense. So what I'm just going to do is have a road appearing from nowhere. It's not the end of the world. So the road will appear from behind here, swing round in front of the swing round here in front of the station, come along here and swing round, and then this big turning circle down here. Let's see if we've got, there we go, for where the hearse will go round. And the entrance to the vicarage is going to be off of the turning circle up in this corner. I did think about having it in this corner, but that turn seems to me just too sharp. Doesn't make sense. And then the vicarage will stand in its own grounds here somewhere, and I've built one of the Metcalfe stone cottages. You get 2 of these in the kit, by the way. and they're quite substantial actually. I was quite impressed with them. They take a bit more building than your average Metcalfe kit because of all the laser cut stuff with them. They're rather good. And they each have 2 sheds, which I think is a rather sweet name for them, because I'm not sure they would have been sheds originally. And they will sit in their own ground, and that will be where the sexton and the gardener live in tied accommodation, and the gardener also looks after the churchyard and keeps it in its nice, well-kept state. Not yet sure how I'm going to how I'm going to do the boundary for the vicarage. I am going to use this hedging as the boundary for the smaller buildings, and it will have a dirt lane going up to it because of course they wouldn't have been able to afford a car given the period that I'm modelling in. The vicarage possibly having hedging. The hedge is a bit low, that's the only thing. This piece here I've doubled, and that looks a bit better, but even that looks a bit sort of ineffectual. So I'm not sure if actually you would put a proper fence or a wall rather than a huge great hedge, because it would be one hell of a hedge if it's going all the way around that boundary. So I haven't made my mind up on that yet, but we'll see where we go. But what I have done so far, and which is why there is the black marks here, is I've marked out the size of the road, because the road as it comes through here will not be this full width. And the next thing is to paint in what I think will be the road areas, excuse me, so that I can then put in the curbstones and infill with the grassed areas, and then I can make my mind up how I'm going to edge the boundary of the vicarage. So once I've done all that, we'll come back and see how we're going on. Well, here we are a few days later, and my thinking has evolved on a little bit. As you can probably see just about there, if I go in a little. Oops, I never will work this camera out. There we go. I made a slight change to the arrangement just about here, because it occurred to me I was going to have a strip of turf running all the way along here, but it occurred to me that when either you were negotiating a coffin out of a hearse or a bride out of a bridal car, the last thing you'd need to want to walk across would be a load of turf. So the boundary, the curbstone comes right up to the side of the paving, and I should put some bushes or something in here just as a marker for the end of the paving. But this now is done. I'll tip you forward so you can, as we go over the top there we go, lovely. That's all painted in for the roadway. I've also, and this has worked rather well, I'm pleased to say, got my strip of grass all the way up the side of the paving, which I had a go at doing something. I think it's come out okay. We'll have to see. But you will have seen various people that make clumps of grass by using little blobs of PVA, putting some static grass over them, letting it all dry, and then you can peel them off and stick them on, and I've had a go at doing that. It suddenly occurred to me that if it was possible to put a jig together, I might be able to make that strip of grass all in one go. And I should put up here a picture of the jig, which was 2 strips of styrene held down by masking tape, and by and large it worked. The masking tape in a couple of places had crept over the edge of the styrene, so it stuck to the grass, and that had to be very gently taken off, but it all came off. And I ended up with this exactly the right length strip of grass, which has been put down in, and then the curbstone stuck to the side of it. It may need pressing down in places, because every now and then I see that it's decided to creep out, but it's looking not too bad. The end piece there, the curb's gone down, and I've put some some Jarvis dark brown scatter, I think. And what I intend to put there is some bushes and possibly a couple of small trees. Still not sure how I'm going to deal with the boundary from where the car park of the station ends. Probably a slight raised area with a fence on the top of it or something, but we'll come back to that in due course. I don't intend to mark up the station, because I don't think station car parks in the 1940s, there weren't that many cars in them anyway, and I'm not sure they were necessarily marked off. People just parked where they could safely park. Which brings us back to the vicarage. I'm going to take you off the tripod for the moment. Oh no, I won't, because I need my other hand. Just a moment, there we go. I think the answer with the vicarage, which is, I'll come out. Hooray. So the vicarage is going to stand about here somewhere, possibly a bit further back. And I've resolved how the boundary is going to be done. You'll know from the earlier section that I was a bit troubled by the size of the hedging, which was a bit puny. That's the word we're looking for. And it suddenly struck me that actually a piece of double O gauge hedging might be just the thing. And lo, it was thus. So what I have now, if I put this into place very roughly, is a mighty hedge. That's a proper yew hedge now. Yes, well, it's not doing brilliant. So that's going to have a yew hedge going down there, and I've decided that the front here is going to have the same kind of wall as the church does. So PD models have already been indented for another kit, both of the walls, pillars, and some railings. And I think what I will be able to do, I think the distance is just right, is probably have 2 sets of walls with a couple of pillars either side, 2 more pillars and gates, and perhaps a swinging drive up to the front of the vicarage, and then swinging back out again. Because I think if you were exiting through here, you could make that turn round fairly well, I think, but we'll see. Yes, in fact, that's going to come up to about there. So we'll see what that looks like when it's done. But there's nothing more I can do for the time being. I've done quite a bit today, and the hairspray that's holding down all the stuff that I've stuck down today is now taking my my throat. So I think we'll call it. We'll end here, and we'll come back when I've got the next pieces done. Well, here we are, several days on, I think, from the last recording. And as you can see, things have moved on quite a bit. The wall kit arrived and the fencing from PD Models. And the kit that I bought this time had not only straight pieces in, but slightly curved pieces. And the length of the curved piece worked just perfectly for the distance here. That's allowed me to have an entrance and exit gate. I think this is going to be the entrance gate, as I said, I think, in the last one. And I'm going to use the scatter that I used for the pathway here to provide a driveway that will come up and then back out again, of course. The curb is in here waiting for earth to be put down on top of it, so I can have clumps of bushes and some flowers for the entrance to the vicarage. And this provides, I think, I mean, it's perhaps not quite enough, but it looks enough for a turning circle. I mean, there's no real coffins going to be brought up here, so it doesn't really matter. Yet to sort out in my mind how the whole of the garden is going to be laid out. I don't want it all grass because I think that would be terribly boring, but I haven't yet thought about how the design will go. Though I am, I think, coming round to using these walls to provide a wall either side with a gate either side as the break between the front and back ends of the garden. The other thing, because I was waiting for something to dry, as you do, and I thought there's no point wasting it just sitting around doing nothing, is that I thought, well, the vicar really must have somewhere where he can go on his own for writing his sermons, but also having his model railway. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to build a rather large shed for the back of his garden? I mean, I may put some garden tools in. So I did, and that's this little thing here. Which, as I'm talking now, I'll put some pictures up of how I started to construct the shed, which was fairly straightforward. I mean, it's a card carcass essentially, which is just the four walls, and with a window and a door. And then I thought it would be really nice if it really looked like a shed, so it had the kind of overlapping strips of wood. So I tried to do that with some stripped styrene. And I think on the whole it's come out quite well. I'm quite pleased with that, really. So that sits there, and then the roof is a separate piece made up, and that which sits as a cap on top of everything, and that is going to go there. I think that will look quite nice. So that will need a path down to it, obviously. And then I'm starting to think about how we lay out the garden and whether any part of the garden is given over still to vegetable growing, given that this is still when food would be on the ration. At the back here, I don't know if you can see this, I'll come round and zoom in a minute. There's a little gate in the back of the hedge to allow the gardener access, and the hedging has gone down to provide the gardens for the tied cottages at the back where the sexton and the gardener live, and they'll have their sheds facing away, of course, because people don't want to be seen going into their sheds, if they are really sheds. And that's about where I've got to so far. The next thing really obviously is to do some of the work here, and I think I know what the front of the garden's going to look like, so I can do that and get this lane down here, which is just going to be an earth lane with a strip of grass through the centre. And then we can start working out how I'm going to do this area here. I put some papier-mâché down there, and I'm not entirely sure I like it, but I want to break up the flatness really of this whole area to some extent, and maybe it'll work. We'll see. That's really it for now. One thing I will do, I may be able to overlay it while I'm talking to you now. I used the train cam and used it and drove it down the lane by the side of the vicarage, and I was quite pleased with the results that came out. So I'm hoping at the moment you're seeing it moving down the lane, which I'll do again because I've tied it up from the last time I did it. There was dirt everywhere. So I think this scene is actually beginning to come together, and it looks quite good when you see it down at sort of ground level. My intention from now on is to try and do a video at least twice a month, and to publish, if I can, on the 2nd and 4th Fridays of each month. So this one's a little late because it should have gone out on Friday, but we were away for a few days, so that's why it's coming out today. So just to try and get into a regular pattern of doing these things. And so the next one will be a week on Friday, yes, whatever that is, 13th, that'll be the 27th. And that will be the monthly update, because in addition to what I've been working on here, I have been doing other things since the last update. There's a couple of kits that I want to show you that I got from Modelux Models, which are really very impressive. And also that I've changed the way that I'm going to be doing the wall between the houses and the MPD by accident, as it turns out, which is, I think, much better. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll give you a few more bits of trains before completely signing off. If you've liked the video, please do like. It helps tremendously if people like videos, and please do leave me your comments. I'm always pleased to receive them. They've been incredibly helpful. There's things that have changed in the way that I'm doing things because of people's comments. And of course, if you haven't subscribed before, please do subscribe. It'd be lovely to have you along. So until I speak to you in just under a fortnight's time, bye-bye.